Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and I wanted to start today's video by asking you a question. Have you ever been sitting by yourself watching Jingle All the Way and wishing that this movie had a kid who could actually act and less Terminator? Neither have I, but fortunately for both of us, this movie actually exists. It's called 8-Bit Christmas, and it is on HBO Max. So for today's video, what I wanted to do is break down this movie, talk to you about it. I am a huge fan of cinema. There was a time in my life where every Friday I was going to new movies every week, regardless of what it was, just because I like to sit in a theater and watch movies. And I feel like this movie is that right intersection of Christmas and video games and 'tis the season. So let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Spoiler alert, I will be going through the plot of this movie, so if it's something that you really want to see, go watch it and then come back. I promise I will be here for you. But without further ado, let's get started talking about 8-Bit Christmas. This is a movie that came out this year in 2021, starring Neil Patrick Harris and June Diane Raphael. I originally thought she was going to play his wife or love interest, but turns out she is actually the mom in this movie. And the whole affair was produced by Warner Brothers Studios and New Line Cinema. They've been making movies forever. Some of their top ones are like Lord of the Rings. And more recently, they did the DC superhero movie Shazam. To give you a quick overview of the movie, the plot is pretty simple. He's taking his daughter to grandma's house. She thinks it's really boring, so they go upstairs and he shows her his Nintendo Entertainment System. And basically, the plot of the movie revolves around him telling the story of how he, as a kid, wanted this video game system so bad, and it kind of parallels his daughter, Annie, and how she wants a cell phone for Christmas really bad. So he's telling her the story of how he gets his Nintendo Entertainment System. Newsflash, we know how it ends with him getting the Nintendo Entertainment System. So right away, we know how it starts, we know how it ends, and this movie is telling us that the film is really going to be about that adventure along the way. The whole scene of them walking through downtown Chicago seems loosely irrelevant to me because that 30 seconds of exposition that they have about Annie wanting a cell phone could have very easily just happened at grandma's house. But we do get this little clip of Neil Patrick Harris falling. And I have to tell you, as like an older person, falling isn't necessarily funny to me. I just look at it and think, ooh, my knees, my back. I'm not into it. I wanted to ask you, do you think falling is funny?
Oh! He needs some milk.
So they're at grandma's house. He's showing her the Nintendo and he shows her to blow on the cartridges. I just wanted to throw in there really quick. Do not blow on your cartridges. That is not good for them. And it doesn't help. It's like shaking your Polaroid pictures. Like I know media has told us for years to do it. Don't do it. So the movie jumps into a flashback with Neil Patrick Harris beginning his story of how he gets his Nintendo Entertainment System. And apparently he goes to this rich kid's house who has a Nintendo, and that's kind of his first exposure to it. Like everybody is outside screaming. They want this kid to come out and pick them so that they can go inside to his party room and play the Nintendo with him. If you were a kid in the late 80s, this was a big deal for you. So then we see a nice little montage of Elon Musk Jr. over here losing his goddamn mind.
It was an early lesson in God's cruelty, giving the only Nintendo in town to a rich kid like Timmy Keene.
And then next, we're introduced to kind of our lovely little cast of Goonies here, these cute kids. Honestly, I was going to tell you a little bit of like their backstory and stuff, but after actually watching the movie, their backstories are basically irrelevant. Obviously, my favorite is Tammy because she's a badass. But at the end of the day, these kids were really just a means to spicing up the middle portion of this movie. And they don't really have any sort of bearing on the beginning or the end. So down in the basement, they're getting ready to play the Nintendo.
I love this place.
And there she was, glistening in all her gray plastic glory.
So after he's done playing the Nintendo with the little rich kid, he goes home, stars are in his eyes, and he starts planting seeds with his mom and with his dad about how he wants a Nintendo for Christmas. A sassy school teacher, and his dad is a carpenter or contractor or builder of some sort. He's constantly shown looking for his power tools and is like one of those old school dads that believes like you need to get outside and play and do things with your hands and that sort of thing. In the next scene, they are all sitting around the dinner table and we get this sort of funny exchange where the mom can't say the word Nintendo.
What have you been doing inside all day?
Probably playing the Nintendo.
Nintendo.
That's what I just said. Nintendo, John.
And this part like aggravated me to no end. But I also just want to point out that to me, it's very realistic because every adult that I had interacted with as a child couldn't seem for the life of them to pronounce the things that I was interested in. So for example, instead of Pokemon, which is a very simple word, they were like Pokemon. No, it's not Pokemon, and you know that. Or like my mom, instead of Tamagotchi, she would call it a Tamakuchi. Okay, girl. And then both the parents jump on these little tirades about why he's not going to get a Nintendo for Christmas, and they just throw out their like stupid rhetoric about it.
Not have one.
But you said I could get one for Christmas.
I said nothing of the sort.
Video games make you fat, Jake. It's a fact.
As he's saying this, all I can think is, you think you can make a dental retainer out of supplies from Office Max, so maybe I don't need your opinion on this one, Bob the Builder.
I mean, orthodontistry is the biggest racket. I can make one of those. Easy. Couple paper clips, mouth guard. Done.
But it ends with everybody laughing at the stupid little slogan from his little sister.
Looks like a no-go on Nintendo.
And to that I say,
Don't kick the goddamn baby. Kick the baby. Wah. Ah.
so after dinner, the movie cuts away and we get this totally random interlude of the kids trying to play King of the Mountain against a 7th grade Andre the Giant over here. From this point forward, the movie just kind of goes off the rails. We see all of these random different little scenes of them trying to do stuff that is vaguely interesting maybe, but doesn't necessarily have an impact on the direction the film is going. For example, they show that rich kid getting a Nintendo Power Glove. You know, the Nintendo Power Glove was a total mess. And there's this cute scene of Tammy beating him on the Nintendo.
Boom! You can give up now.
Nah, I think I'll win instead.
After she beats him, Jeff Bezos Jr. over here goes absolutely out of his mind again, which is something he's been shown to have done already. But I have to say is also very relatable to me because guys really do tend to rage out when girls beat them in video games. And I can only imagine that it was that much worse back in the 80s. So he breaks the TV, and then we get this funny tidbit of his mom like calling down on the intercom to ask him if he wants any Tang.
Does anybody want some Tang? I just made a bad.
Ooh, Tang? I'd love some. Thanks, Mom. So then they introduce us to this reoccurring bit throughout the movie where his mom bought him some girls' boots because she had like a coupon for them and they were on sale. And of course, this is the 80s, so everybody's going to bully him for it.
I think we got ourselves a pair of girls' boots here.
They do make the Andre the Giant kid out as if he's going to like turn Jake's little kid face into pudding. But at this point, they introduce us to the next plot device of the movie. And that is that there is this Christmas wreath contest put on by their version of the Boy Scouts, the Ranger Scouts. And if you go like door to door and sell enough Christmas wreaths and you sell the most Christmas wreaths, then the grand prize, first place prize, is a Nintendo Entertainment System.
This year's first prize is a brand new Nintendo Entertainment System.
So then we get this montage of all the kids going door to door trying to sell their little asses off. And even Jake's mom is trying to give him advice.
You know what, Jake? If you want to win that prize, you have to do what I tell my kids in class every day. Make like a vacuum cleaner. Suck it up and do the work.
All I can say to that is don't give me tips on sucking, honey. In college, my nickname was Dyson. Then we get this little cutaway to him talking to his dad, and the dad is talking about how back in his day, kids didn't play video games or whatever. But once again, I just feel like this rhetoric is really misplaced. This is the type of stuff that we hear all the time from older people, like, oh, we didn't have video games back in my day or whatever. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with going outside and playing outside if that's what you're into. On its face, this idea is just stupid. There's a lot of elderly people who didn't have running water and indoor toilets and shit like that. But you wouldn't say oh, back in my day, we didn't have toilets, so I don't want you to be able to piss inside. It just doesn't make sense. But it's something that people still used to say a lot. So then we get this cute little scene where his sister kind of manipulates him a little bit in a nice way. She comes up with a plan to help him get a bunch of Christmas wreath sales. And in return, he is supposed to help her get a redheaded with freckles Cabbage Patch Kid doll.
Old people buy stuff from kids. So what you need are a bunch of old people all in one place so you don't have to track them all down.
Basically, her idea is for little homie to go to a nursing home, and at that nursing home, he can sell to all of these old people who are basically just a captive audience and just want attention from this nice little young man.
Hi, everybody.
You look just like my grandson.
And then in the next scene, we're looking at his whole family in the car. They're getting ready to go to the mall. And so now he has to return the favor for his sister and start planting seeds in his parents' minds to help her get that Cabbage Patch Kid doll. On the way to the mall, somebody cuts the dad off and he makes this joke.
Look at him.
All right,
Look at him.
Todd.
He's jerking the wheel like he's milking a cow.
And all I could think is maybe they were actually jerking on the wheel. So I was on Reddit a while back and this woman posted this big long story about how she likes to flick the bean in the car while she's on the way to work and then on her way home from work. Basically, she was doing it because that's her only free time away from the kids and her family and stuff, where she has that alone time theoretically to do it. But now anytime I'm out in traffic and somebody cuts in front of me or they're swerving around or being crazy or whatever, all I can think back to is that post, and I know what they're doing in that car. Anyways, they get to the mall and the Cabbage Patch section has just been blown out and they're completely sold out. Totally difficult to find one of these little garbage pail kids. And then while they're shopping around, the parents go to do their Christmas shopping. He's left with his sister and he sees this Nintendo display.
Hello, Jake.
Who said that?
You know who.
Nintendo?
That's right. Come over here.
There is a part of me that just lights up when I see this kind of display. It's something that I wish we had more of in modern times. I don't feel like big box retailers really make displays that look this fun and inviting. And when you go to places like GameStop, I think that the overall experience of going to a GameStop really detracts from the wonderment that can be found in such a display. So he gets so wrapped up in looking at this display that he loses track of his sister. And they have this quick little cutaway of him and his parents trying to chase down his sister. In the heat of the moment, he drops his retainer on the nasty ass mall floor. And his dad is looking at him later. You know that money is maybe a little bit tight for this family. They don't have spare hundreds of dollars to replace his retainer. So there's kind of this subtext of if you don't have that retainer in your mouth, I'm gonna beat your ass. So the dad's show me your teeth, open your mouth. And the kid doesn't have it in there. So there's this whole race scene of him running through the mall, finding this dirty ass retainer on the ground and popping it back in his mouth just in the nick of time for his dad to catch him. While I wasn't super enthralled by the chase, I have to say the payoff of seeing him stick this nasty ass retainer back in his mouth was hilarious. After the whole mall endeavor, we see his dad and Jake going out to this back alley, scary drug deal sort of setting. And their hope is to buy a Cabbage Patch Kid doll for the little sister out of the back of this dude's car. They are able to get her a Cabbage Patch Kid doll with freckles. It is the blonde one. And so after that scene with his dad, we're shown this big culmination meeting where the Ranger Scouts are doing their award giveaway. So finally, we get to see if Jake sold enough of the wreath wreaths to earn his Nintendo Entertainment System. And we're kind of starting to get to that point where we're reaching the third act of the film. And so part of me is wondering, like, are they going to give it to him? Are they not going to give it to him? He does end up winning, but unfortunately, the grand prize was a set of encyclopedias and not a Nintendo Entertainment System. I would be so pissed. I would be rioting. I would burn that place down and take whatever punishment comes my way. I feel like that's almost like fraudulent. Like, you're sending all these little kids out. They're selling their asses off thinking that they're going to win this Nintendo Entertainment System. And then at the last minute, without even telling them, you just pull that prize. That's so wrong. But as it turns out, that snotty rich kid who had broken his TV, that kid's dad led this whole like parent-teacher committee thing where they are seeking to ban the Nintendo Entertainment System. And so they get rid of that as a prize. And basically the dad's just butthurt that his little kid, his little precious child, broke the television set and injured their dog while he was rage quitting his video games.
Video games did this. Oh. And this. Oh. And this.
So I just want to talk for a moment about this whole thought process that video games cause violence. I know back in the 80s, maybe there was less research on it. It is something that has been thoroughly studied today. Video games do not make you violent. I do believe that there is kind of a relationship there in the sense that all the media that we watch impacts us on some level in some way, but there is not a direct connection between playing video games and then becoming a violent person. And that's not to say we shouldn't limit video game use amongst kids. They don't necessarily have the discipline or the mental development to monitor their own video game usage as far as making sure that it's not too much and impacting their schoolwork or their social lives or that sort of thing. But video games are not bad. And in fact, some studies have even shown that there are certain mental benefits to playing them. But the scene is still very real to me because there was that time in history where like towns were trying to change zoning ordinances so that they could get arcades kicked out of the town, and Nintendo Entertainment System and stuff was being banned and kids weren't allowed to play certain video games and that sort of thing. And it really bugs me when like boomers especially talk about cancel culture, because I feel like y'all canceled my entire childhood. Like video games were canceled, Dungeons and Dragons was canceled, Harry Potter was canceled. I remember at one point when I was in maybe like 3rd grade or 4th grade, and I got in trouble for reading the book Bridge to Terabithia because it happened to deal with the topic of death. And so it's really hard for me to take people seriously when they talk about cancel culture when I look back at my childhood and I'm like, you know what? Everything that I loved was canceled. So this is the world y'all created. Deal with it. So they're really intense. They're chanting. They want to bring it down now.
Video! Game over! Let me hear you! Video! Game over!
Bring it down now, video. Teens.
What in the cha-cha slide bullshit?
Take it back now, y'all.
Just like the movie Footloose, where they managed to ban dancing in their entire city, in this movie, they managed to ban the Nintendo Entertainment System from their entire county. So now we reach the point in the movie where his daughter Annie is asking the important questions.
So if Batavia banned Nintendo and Grandma and Grandpa won't get you one, how did you get the Nintendo?
And in return, we see the Scooby Gang coming up with this convoluted plan to get their Nintendo Entertainment System. First, they're going to go and sell like all their trading cards or whatever, everything that they can to get enough money to buy the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then during the field trip, they're going to stage a diversion so that Jake can run into the mall, buy the Nintendo really quick, and then run back out, and then all the friends can share it. But right away, Andre the Giant sees that something is up here, and he goes and tries to steal little homie's money.
That's ours.
Not anymore.
You can't do that.
Oh yeah? And what are you gonna do about it?
At this point in the movie, I'm kind of pissed watching this. If I were Jake, I would have been absolutely outraged. Like, I want this Nintendo system so bad, and this money isn't just my money. This is a lot of money that me and all my friends have pulled together to do this. You are not gonna take it from me. You can fucking beat my ass, but I will fight you for this. This is the hill that I will die on. And luckily, Jake kind of agreed because that's where he stood up for himself too.
What does that mean?
You're just a sad little bully. And if you don't give me back my Trapper Keeper right now, the only one crying is gonna be you, Buttface. Now!
And so we see their big elaborate plan go off. Unfortunately, at the very last second, it does not go off without a hitch. Boom, the Nintendo is crushed. He did not get what he came for on this day. And so I'm still like in my head asking myself, how does he get this goddamn Nintendo then? After everything that we've been through, Christmas Day finally arrives. And he unwraps all of his presents. He gets all kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, he does not get a Nintendo this day. What he does get is something really heartwarming. Now, this entire movie, they've shown his dad building stuff and working on like some sort of project or something. I was not necessarily expecting this, but at the same time, it's something that I've seen a lot of like nice little white kids who are better off than me get something like this in their childhood, and it's really precious.
High above the frozen dog poo that had become the bane of my existence was the most beautiful structure I had ever laid my eyes on.
So at the beginning of the movie, Neil Patrick Harris's daughter Annie mentions that this Christmas is going to be a little bit different than the previous ones. And the subtext that I was kind of picking up on was that he maybe had a divorce with his wife, because we always see the dad interacting with his daughter. We don't see his wife basically in any scene up until the very end of the movie where they're gathered around the Christmas table. And we see his mom, we see his wife, we see the family, but we don't see the dad. And that's where it sinks in that this movie was never really about him getting his Nintendo. It was about him thinking back on some of his best memories with his dad. And there was part of me that really didn't like the dad character because in many ways he wasn't very affirming of the things that his son was interested in as far as like the Nintendo goes. Look at his face as he gives his son this treehouse. He's so happy with what he's done, and he's so delighted in the joy that he's brought to his son.
It's awesome!
I'm gonna get the video camera.
Nah.
No?
Nah. Let him be.
And this part really got to me because I've never had a father in my life who loved me enough to make something like this tree fort for me or do something this grand. So at the end of it all, it was just this really touching movie. And it kind of had this message that the best moments in life are not things that you record or like possessions that you have. It's about the people who you get to share your holidays with and the memories of the loved ones that you have that you can keep in your heart forever. Overall, it was just this really wonderful movie. The set design was great. I was actually kind of impressed by the acting. Neil Patrick Harris is obviously a gem, but a lot of times in movies with kids, the child acting isn't that great. And in this movie, it really stood out to me. Definitely something I would recommend. You should check it out. Thank you so much for watching this whole clip breakdown of the movie with me. I hope that you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know what your favorite Christmas movie is. Maybe I'll check that out next. And until I see you next time, I hope you have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and whatever holidays you celebrate. If it's not those, I hope that you're just blessed and cozy and feeling the warmth that can be in this holiday season. So thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next video.